Welcome to the final thoughts of Pandora Celeste. I threw the rulebook on the ground, but here it is. Boom. This is a game that is very spaceship Nemesis-like, but has a very distinct feel. We just finished a playthrough of it.
I'm surprised, because when I first looked at the rulebook, I was like, oh, I recognize all of these mechanics from Nemesis. I expected this to play and feel almost identical.
Yeah, me too.
It feels
so different.
Surprisingly different.
Yeah.
I'm shocked how snappy that played. Right?
It was a quick play. You can go check it out if you want to see the playthrough, but we're here just discussing our opinions of it.
Especially because I've played a lot of Nemesis. It's one of my favorite games. That's a game that is a space hog, a time hog.
Yep.
And I expected for all of the for all the streamlining this game does, or looks like it does in the rules, I didn't expect it to actually shrink the experience.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think it really does achieve that goal.
Yeah, it feels higher octane somehow. I was worried with the cartoony aesthetic, it was going to lose some of the theme from Nemesis.
Yeah.
And I think in the sense of it being creepy or scary or spooky, it does lose that theme. In the idea that it is a fiasco trying to get through this ship, it increases that theme.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
This is more of a mad scramble with wacky stuff happening constantly.
Yeah.
And it's very fun and snappy. What did you think?
Yeah, completely agree with that assessment, Zach. My heart was pounding in a way that it doesn't pound in Nemesis, because I was petrified you were going to screw up my plans. And I think the objectives here are so confrontational somewhat in a way that Nemesis's aren't.
I feel like, you always know when you're going into Nemesis that someone's going for the escape pods, someone's trying to stop the ship from exploding, someone's trying to get to the vault. You always know that those are the end objectives, and they're going to do something on their way to trying to achieve that. In this, it feels like all the objectives actually change how everybody's playing the game. Like, your objective got you a super powerful weapon and a super powerful healing item.
Yeah.
Because your objective was also to fight stuff that's not meant to be fought.
Yeah.
Right? So you have all these cool items and equipment and things that only you get to interact with.
Yeah.
Because your objective specifically interacts with them.
Yeah, and it's specifically it honestly might be a bit of a wonky play, or like an atypical play, let's say, because of that objective, because we didn't have the needing to creep around. I was there was an alien who was going to leave the ship, and I was running after it, just trying to fight it with my pulse shotgun, and then eventually
I was also the other thing that I think is fascinating, because we played a couple of the scenarios, and
we had to figure it out.
We'll get to that later. But in playing those scenarios, we were both me and Chris were it feels like neither of us are playing this game. It feels like we're just sort of doing what the scenario tells us to do. And I thought going into this actual playthrough, it was going, I thought I understood the shape of this game going into it. We were going to activate the first objective. It was going to spawn an android. Then we were going to walk into the cargo control. It's going to spawn another alien. Then we're going to run from the aliens, get into the escape pod, and either run or escape. Escape or die.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be the shape of the game when we started. And almost from turn one, my expectation was subverted. Right?
Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of comparisons of this to Nemesis because of the theme and because of some of the mechanics, but I think that is an incorrect way to engage with this game.
Yeah.
Because I think it is it's its own sort of beast.
I was saying to you yesterday, we were talking about the art of this game, and I was saying it reminds me a bit of a computer game called Space Station 13.
Yeah.
This feels like Space Station 13 to me.
You said to me, you're like, oh yeah, but it's not going to have that same feel. It's zany, it's whatever.
The art was making me think about that, but in Space Station 13, if anyone's ever heard of it, it's like a... I won't go into it, but it's a sort of a zany 20-minute, bunch of people in a spaceship doing stuff, and unexpected chaos ensues. And it felt like unexpected chaos ensued. I love the fact that passing your turn ends everybody else's turn.
Yeah, that was really fun and very annoying for me.
Well, the reason I was doing it is because I knew I was going to have to crawl around the vents in order to try to find the little guy, our mascot.
Yeah.
But crawling around the vents achieves none of the objectives.
Right.
So I knew I needed to force you to start pursuing the objectives so that I could waste time crawling around in the vents.
But didn't you want to crawl around in the vents more and not waste the time?
Right, but I needed to get you actually working on the countdowns in order for me to like feel like I was free to do that.
Interesting.
Right?
That's why you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like initially I was like, I need a weapon in case I have to bump into an alien in the vents. That's why I walked into the computer room. I found an alien, and then I was like, I have to get into the vent. I can't start because I have to stop screwing around. I have to get into the vents. Immediately found the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, like dude, it's like, hey, there it is. I hope I find this. Oh, there it is. All right.
Very fun.
Comparisons to Nemesis. I mean, the thematic it compares. The flow of the game doesn't.
No.
Really.
I mean, you played Nemesis 3 days ago now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
At my place, we had a bunch of people over, some people who had never played Nemesis. 5-person game.
It took like 3-4 hours, maybe.
3-4 hours.
It was the first play for a few people, and it was a 5-person game.
Yeah. Turn time in Nemesis can be really
Oh,
quick.
so long, but it can be so long.
It can be so long.
Yeah.
People are making decisions. People are arguing. People are discussing things. You need to take 2 actions. This is not that dissimilar. Felt so much faster.
Yeah, I think it's the simplicity of the actions. Like on Nemesis, you have, okay, discard a card. You have a whole, like, I don't want to say clunky, because I really enjoy engaging with it.
Yeah,
but
you can discard any card to do any one of, like, 8 different actions.
Yeah.
And then you also have actions on the card. And then you also have items that you can discard actions to do.
And you have actions on every room, too. So that's like you're passing around, say, hey, what is every room? Here, you just have these cards, and they just have the simple symbols on them. And you can choose, okay, those are the actions that you're capable of doing. Sometimes you're able to run. And these are the total kind of symbols that you can activate. This is what they do.
At first,
and really, they're basically this. Like, these are more special ones that you can pick up.
I thought when I saw this sheet of actions, it was going to be too many actions.
Yeah.
But the fact that all the cards only really have 1 or 2, maybe 3 different things you can do on them, it
really limits your decision space.
Right. There was a point that I was in the vents where I was like, I didn't expect to be in the situation where I didn't have the movement. And I was looking at myself and I was like, I don't think if I draw this card, I'm going to have enough movement to get into the bridge.
Yeah.
By the end of this round.
Yeah, I was really scared too, and like movement plays a huge part. I felt like I had so much movement, but I didn't draw the cards to let me run, and so I was like creeping, and like I had to run from the changing rooms up here as this alien was progressing over there, and then I had to creep out of there so the aliens wouldn't attack me, and then I had to slowly jump in, but then I had one where I could jump in and then fight, which was so huge because it was the last move of that turn, and I needed to get my weapon off before it recharged. So it was, really, really high octane Nemesis where the little aliens aren't scary.
No, I think like
the big aliens, very scary.
Big aliens,
the big
very
nasties.
scary. The little ones, it's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
But like the game, at least this game, didn't see like you would have to play. You have to be in a deadlock in some way, I think, to be in a situation where all those little cuts add up.
Well, I don't know, because we played a 2-player game.
Yeah.
But I think when you get to a larger player game, and when it isn't this time crunch, I actually don't think every game is going to be this time crunch. I think it was the way that our objectives interacted, our Cold War going over here, but really it wasn't a Cold War for me. I didn't want the second nasty to appear because that was counter to my objective. If that nasty escaped, I lost the game.
Right.
And so when it appeared, I was like, okay, I need to just run. Like it made my game a race at that time.
And like as soon as you were racing, I had to race as well.
Yeah.
Because there was no way I can use that ship. Or once that ship's gone, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
And I'd have to run to this one, and there's no way I'm going to get it alone.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but because of that, it ended up being a really quick thing. I think with more players, because of the death by 1,000 cuts idea of those aliens, when you have that conflict, it'll happen later enough in the game where it's like, hey, we both want the smoking gun.
Yeah.
And we're both in the bridge, and Zach turns and he's like, you know what? I want that item. And he starts like punching me and like has that turncoat moment, shooting you dead and like getting the hits on you.
The other thing that makes me, because usually when we play Nemesis, I'm like, Nemesis plays best 2 or 3. Maybe
I'd say 3.
Maybe 4.
Three to
3 is
4.
probably the sweet spot. 2 is maybe you have a little less interaction.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do 2. I'd say 3 to 4.
3 to 4. But like a 5-player game, I don't really ever want to play with Nemesis. I think I want a larger player game of this, and here's why. And it's a situation that was never going to come up with me and Chris.
Yeah.
But when you get into the bridge, which is the escape shuttle, and you've activated and it's going to leave, it will not leave if there are more than 3 people inside of it. So if you're playing a 4-person game, right? Chris runs in there and he's ready to, or I run in there and I'm ready to escape.
Yeah.
One more person walks in and all of a sudden it's a standoff. Who's getting kicked out? Right? And how do you fight each other in this game? You have to accuse each other of who has the corporate objective. And so there's an element of bluffing the corporate objective. There's an element of having a fist fight in the bridge. I've just remembered a situation we would have had to deal with. No, we wouldn't have. Never mind.
But what might we have had to deal with?
When the escape shuttle leaves, if there's an alien or a nasty in the escape shuttle, everyone has to take turns fighting it until it's dead.
You have like the final confrontation. You can kick them out of the airlock. There are rules for all of this.
Yeah, and I think all of that would have prolonged the game ahead of this. I think specifically because we had the android.
Yeah.
And specifically because you were playing the character you were playing.
Yeah.
And specifically because I didn't activate the next nasty.
Yeah.
And specifically because it was a 2-player game instead of a 3-player game.
Yeah. It got this experience. Like, I do actually think that our experience might be atypical. Yeah. In terms of, because in the scenarios that we played leading up to playing this, we felt more of that crawling. We felt more of that slower progression, right? And then we felt more of like exploring and getting the stuff that you need.
I also think, though, when we were doing those learning games, we were learning the game a lot. We were checking the rule book a lot. And that made what I think could have been a very snappy little situation into a much longer prolonged situation.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help. Like, this is again prototype. It'll be on Kickstarter right now. If you're seeing this video, you can go check it out. The link will be down below. But the current learning rule book, you have a learn to play, and then you also have a rule book. It needs some work. Yeah, like the index at the back is just the table of contents, but not in alphabetical order. So if you're trying to show someone, if you're trying to like look up a thing, I'm like, okay, I want to look up
nasties,
agendas. I'm trying to find agendas. Oh, okay, I found it easily that time because I had to look it up and knew where it was. But there's a lot of things which make you interact back and forth between the learn to play and the scenario, and we wanted to jump into this game having had a lot of experience with these games. We didn't want to do the scenarios to learn it. We wanted to play like the regular game a few times to learn it.
And so I read the main rule book, and I saw that there was a setup for the main game after the scenarios at the back. And I read the setup for the main, like for the game after you've played the tutorial scenarios. And the setup for the main game made no sense. And we had to go back and walk through all the tutorials step by step.
Because it's all interspersed in the scenarios of what you've set up and what you've learned and how you set that up. And so that just, hey, I know the designer will be watching, that needs to change.
Yeah.
Needs to change.
And like, again...
But it will change, right? Like
prototype rulebook.
These are prototypes. These are sort of like prototype pains, I believe, in terms of feeling it out. But what I felt we played in our playthrough felt like the full experience.
Right.
There were some little rules minutia that honestly we didn't look up because it would have taken forever to find.
Right.
Because it wasn't easily accessible.
And there's some stuff in here that is written in a very strange way. There's the rule about aliens attacking that says, don't worry, the aliens will never attack except on your turn when you walk out of a space. Except always when the aliens take a turn. And I'm like, do they never attack or do they always attack?
They never will attack unless it's on your turn. Now, the aliens attack when they move. It's like,
on the aliens round, and you're like, okay.
But again, like these are just sort of like slight pain points. So in the playthrough, you might see a few hiccups of rules, but I don't I know there's a feel sometimes like, oh, that rule's wrong, like whatever you did. I feel like we really got the feeling of the play, and that playthrough should capture the feeling of the things that you can do and how they interact. And I can definitely see the potential of how all these things will interact. Like, we didn't even get to interact with
this whole half of the board.
This whole half of the map, the cargo bay, because it's not in the demo portion, right? We didn't have scenarios for it. And so there's also going to be engines, which clearly, well, not clearly, but if you've played Nemesis, you can break them potentially. I'm sure that there will be additional ways to interact in this cargo area.
There's an escape pod back here.
Maybe it's just used for a higher player count as well.
Maybe. I know that another aspect of this game is hull breaches. And there was some mention in the rule book about environment suits, so you could survive in the ship if it's completely in vacuum, or if the air has been shut off. None of that's in the rule book. None of that's on the game yet.
Yeah.
So we don't know how those aspects work.
But it's just an expansion of what you saw and what we have experienced with this. And I think that expansion was fun. I think this scratches a decidedly different itch than Nemesis, and I think that's really important considering Nemesis is so good.
Yeah.
If it were more of a carbon copy, it would be like, well, why would I play this over Nemesis? But I think this has given me actual, like, definable reasons as to the experience it gives versus Nemesis. And we didn't even talk about the coolest part. That
the box?
The box is the board.
The box is the board.
Is the box.
Maybe this is also a
This is the box. And see, Artie's into it. Artie sees it,
here,
but you just fold it up, you stuff it all in, and then you open it up, and that's the box, that's the board. This is the vent system, which exists in the box and like is a 3D component so that you can jump, and it really does make a difference
when you're above and
below for readability.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
It also works as sort of the game tray. I'm a little iffy about the vents, to be honest. It's a very strange sort of acrylic see-through thing you've placed on top of the board.
It's going to be different. It's going to be more like a 3D, like vacuum packed like feel. It's not going to be this sort of like hard thing. Yeah, that's what it said in the.
That's interesting.
In the briefing,
a little nasty's gotten onto the table.
Hey, little nasty.
You little Arnie, you want to come over here? Oh, he's gone. Anyway, I do think that in the state that it's in, it's a little hard to see all the little rooms inside the
it's
vents
true, yeah. It's
overlay.
But again,
I got used to it,
and that's prototyping. You know what I mean? I feel like the actual thing will be more conducive to play, and this is to just give a semblance of it. I actually liked it a lot. I think without it, I think to take this off,
and it's a little busy,
and you're here, and I'm here. I don't know if you're in the vents or not.
Right.
I'm like, where are you? You know, seeing that 3D element, I actually really liked, and I didn't expect to.
I think being, because especially in our trial scenarios, none of us bothered to go in the vents.
Yeah.
I don't even think the vent rules were available to us.
Well, there was Scenario 2,
Scenario 2, right?
Scenario 1, they aren't. Prologue, they aren't.
But I do, in this last gameplay, running around in the vents, even the little bit I did, I do see the value in having a different place on the board to go for that.
Yeah. Honestly, most of my pain points are with the prototyping process and the rule book and the like accessibility of how to do that learn to play.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a thing which I'm happy to give leeway on because it's in development. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't expect. I've read a lot of prototype rule books, and I don't expect a perfect one.
No.
I just expect one that gives a sense of the game. And I think if you are reading through it, it gives you a nice sense of the game.
Yeah.
Just knowing that you have to go back and forth in a practical standpoint of like looking up rules isn't that effective yet, but it's not something I'm worried about.
Yeah, I the amount of consternation I felt reading the rules does not equal the amount of fun that I had playing this game.
Yeah.
There is a good game here.
Yeah.
Whether or not the learning experience through the rules is good at the moment.
Yeah.
Something I would like to ask you.
Yeah.
We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Nemesis, every time I pull it out, it is an adventure, taking it out and putting it back in the box.
Yeah.
A million decks of cards, a million different kinds of tokens, a million different things.
Setting it up without you was just horrible.
I felt
it was horrible.
I looked behind myself and looked at him playing because I was playing Star Wars Rebellion. at the time.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I looked at Chris, and Chris had the look of a possessed man.
Because I was like, oh god, Zach usually does this.
Gut instinct. More or less hassle than Nemesis.
Oh, significantly less. I think there is a little bit of hassle. It'll depend on like storage elements too.
Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of different tokens, and you have all these special tokens for specific scenarios too, like that go out, which you probably won't use in the main game. But I think it's less. I want there to be removable things in here. I can just pull them out, and that the box can just fold, open, pull out your trays, put out your decks, done. Like, the managing of the aliens and the fiddliness of the bag in Nemesis versus, like, just drawing a card. Okay, we activate. Boom, 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 boom. We activate in a row. Super easy to keep track of. It helps create that efficiency. It helps keep that flow.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot to upkeep, which I think is a good thing. The only thing that you have to really interact with is this data log. And at first I was like, this is a bit annoying to have to like flip to every page. But once you play a little bit more, I remembered what they did.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Bug does this. And really we only had to reference it for the big nasty.
There's a little bit of danger that you remember what they did, but you've missed an important aspect.
Yeah.
But... and I do find this a little fiddly, but I think it works all right.
I think over multiple plays, it'll be really interactive.
One thing that I also think is really interesting is, because we're sort of really comparing this to Nemesis over and over again.
Yeah, we have to.
But in Nemesis, something that makes the game play a lot more exciting and fun are the awesome miniatures. Mm-hmm. I think miniatures would hurt this game.
Oh, 100%.
Right? I think the fact that it's a bunch of simple tokens and cards and things that are representative.
Well, these friggin' acrylics are awesome.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Look at that guy.
But like the fact that like most of the little bugs, the little nasties, are just a little triangle token.
Oh, they're double-sided. Of course you are. Good job. Right?
Yeah, why wouldn't you double-sided?
Well, no, I thought it was the back, but then I realized it's the same. I thought it was the back, but it's the same picture.
Oh, like a front and the back of the alien? Right. But yeah, I think this is as far as like deluxeifications go. I don't think this is a game that would maybe it has minis and maybe they're beautiful and maybe I have to buy them. But as it stands, I think the game works better without them.
No, it's because I think this is the snappy version of Nemesis, right? Like our worry when we were going through the scenario and the fiddliness of it, we were talking to each other, and it took us so long to like learn and play and get familiar with it enough to at least do a playthrough.
Because we kept having questions and not being able to answer them in a timely fashion.
Exactly. We're like, okay, well then we can't do the playthrough until we like solve all these things and have all this knowledge.
Yeah.
But after having that, now this feels like snappy Nemesis.
Yeah.
You don't have... I think that they also said that in their brief. They're like, we know Nemesis takes like an entire afternoon. We want this to be able to be like done in an evening. Like 90 minutes. I'm sure our play was a little bit on the quicker side. But...
Yeah, we're trying to be snappy and entertaining. But like also...
Well, also just because of the objectives I was thinking.
The objectives we were having, yeah.
But yeah, I like it as like a snappy Nemesis alternative for sure.
Yeah.
I could see it fitting that bill. If you were like, I like Nemesis, I like the theme, but it's way too long, it's way too much setup. I think like this is potentially a really nice alternative if people out there were feeling in that camp.
Something that the rulebook mentions a couple times, Chris, is that this is a game for families or for potentially kids. Do you feel that that's the case?
I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, no, it says it's like you can play it with your kids, even though it says 14 up on the box. I'm like, yeah, it says 14 up on the box. I think you should probably play 14 up on the box. I think you could play with your kids and just be like, it is simple enough. It depends on, like, I find the question of playing with kids, not having kids, but knowing some kids who are really into games and knowing some kids who really aren't.
Yeah.
It all depends on the familiarity, right?
Right.
So if you're a gaming family, you could easily play it with them. If you're not, then no, you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there we go. Anything else, Zach? I think we've covered.
I think we've covered a lot.
Too much.
You think we've talked too long?
No, I think it's probably a good time to stop. If we think of anything else, we can put in the comments. But yeah, if you have any questions as well, drop them in the comments of this or of the playthrough video. If you haven't watched the playthrough video, you can go check that out right now and see how it plays. There were some really fun like when you passed that first time, my jaw hit the floor, and I
Really?
was so you were like I passed. I was like, well, what are you doing?
The other thing is, I had no movement in my hand.
Oh.
So like I had no climbing action.
Right.
So I couldn't get into the vents. I couldn't
Right.
walk towards any vent. I couldn't do anything.
Might as well pass.
Might as well pass.
Yeah. You didn't get any of the memories as well that were around there.
Didn't touch a single one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I enjoyed myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm roller coaster of an afternoon, Chris.
Really, we were not having a good time.
We sat down
it.
and we were like, let's play it. And then we were like, oh no.
We were really not having
and
a good time.
Chris was almost going to say we pack it in and not do it today.
Do it another day. Yeah.
And
like it was that it was a slog to learn. And I'm feeling that high as well.
Yeah.
Like a full 180 in terms of
almost like in the middle of turn 1.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, jet fuel was in my veins. And I was like, holy shit, we're playing the game and it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, because when we were learning, we're like, yeah, we know this game is going to be good. We just got to get to it. But like, yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's why we kind of talked a little bit or a lot about that learning curve, which I believe will be fixed in the development process. Right, but I'm just bringing it up so that it is fixed in the development process.
So that when 1,000,
so that when you get it,
yeah.
you can have a seamless, awesome experience.
Yeah,
and just jump right in and yeah, the agendas are fun. The agendas need to say what is a company objective and what isn't a company objective. That one almost made me lose my mind.
There's a big rule in this game where before anyone's allowed to shoot another player or hurt another player in this game, you have to sow discord. And you sow discord by saying, Chris, I think that you have a company objective.
Yeah, you're working for the company.
And if he says he does work for the company, we're all allowed to shoot each other.
Yeah.
But
all hell breaks
loose.
Which is very funny.
It's very funny. But if he doesn't have a company objective, we all have to pass our turn and we move the time track.
Yeah.
Which is a huge, like the big danger if we're calling and getting it wrong.
Yeah, I think we may not actually have to pass our turn. I think it might just tick down, which is even worse because then you don't get that refresh of cards.
But none of the cards, except for one. One randomly says it's a company objective,
and then the other ones are like, read the context, and you'll read the card. It'll be like, hey, the company wants this information.
For example,
a company objective.
You're a veteran of the Orion Wars, and no stinking alien is going to take your ship on your watch. Do you work for the company if it's your ship? Is this a company objective? Is this a personal objective?
I think that's personal. That one feels personal to me.
Okay, well now we're splitting hairs.
But you have the fact that it's open to interpretation.
And one of the mechanics is you have to declare whether or not you have one.
Yeah, so fix that, please. But otherwise, that one made me almost lose my mind. And that was the one where I was like, we're never doing a playthrough again.
That was the final straw because we were ready. We read everything. Yeah. We were like, we just need to pick objectives to start. Yeah, and you were looking at your objectives, and you're like, how do I tell if they're company objectives?
I did say it like that too. But again, like I do want to stress, like we're bringing this up because I think it's important for feedback.
Yeah.
But I also think that this is something that can be corrected, and if that gets corrected, and if the onboarding process gets to be more streamlined, or you can just jump right in and you can know how to play by reading the rules and not have to go in between two different books, I think that you can get a snappy game out. Or if you watch the playthrough, you have 90% of pretty much what
they don't know how to set up the game.
That's true.
Which is what almost sunk our ship three times.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, there you go. Check out the playthrough. Thanks for watching.
It was wonderful hanging out with you, Chris, and you out there. I'm sure.
Yeah, it was more wonderful. Well, no, that was just mean. It was equally wonderful.
Wait.
I was going to say it was more wonderful to hang out with them.
You get to hang out with them like 3 times a week, Chris.
That is true. I see you enough. Get lost.
Yeah. Me and Chris are going to have some good friend time. We're going to play Pandora again. What's your catchphrase?
I don't have a catchphrase. See ya.
Little nasties.
No, you little nasty.
You little nasties. Cool.
Good.
I'm like pleasantly surprised by this game, Chris.
Yeah, me too. It was like night and day.
That was a roller coaster.
Yeah, but it ended up quite nice.